People don't realize how deep this goes.
I was out of clinical medicine. I was coaching. So I was coaching burned out healthcare professionals. And then we know the pandemic hit, and I have a background in neurolinguistic programming, which is, part of my communication background. And what when that happened, and I started to see, number one, the mental health crisis that was happening, and then number two, the murders of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, all in succession. I thought to myself, how can I bring the tools that I have of skill building to this work? I had to really look at where can I create that value. And what I was seeing was there was a lot of talking about bias. There was a lot talking about racism. There was a talking about, how to be an anti-racism, but and anti-racism, how to approach DEI, but like not a lot of what is the day-to-day interpersonal skill that you must build? What is the personal development that must happen? What is the mindset shift? What is the values and belief system that underlies the problem? Because I felt like, well, there's a lot of people who are working on systemic change and who have a lot of expertise in the system work and the organizational work. What I have expertise in is shifting beliefs and behavior. And that is also what is needed, top down and individual out.
I got into this work because I worked in corporate America for 20 years, and I just never felt like my skills were being maximized, utilized. I just never felt like I was being my best self in corporate America. I also never, to be honest, and I've been shy about saying it, but I'm beginning to, become more bold about it. I don't think I was treated fairly, despite being the best sales rep, despite making the company lots of money, despite, giving my all. I could never get myself promoted to a level where, again, my skills were being utilized in a way that we were maximizing my ability.
Yeah, I love the personal stories. And that each of us, had this journey of reckoning, of recognizing what wasn't working and deciding that we were going to make changes to focus on what could work and what was most important. And so very similar to both of those stories. You did it in the healthcare system. It's hard to explain, but it was a very chaotic, very overwhelming experience just due to the lack of information and the needs of our patients and the needs of everyone within the system at that time, and the mental health and physical health concerns, which Dr. Maiysha mentioned. And so I myself found myself overwhelmed and burnt out and needing to take care of myself. And I think it's really important that we, always talk about well-being within this conversation of DE&I, because they are very much linked and connected. And so I also made a personal decision that I needed to take care of myself and step out of that healthcare system to be more effective, as well as to make sure that I was honoring myself spiritually, mentally, and physically in all aspects. And so that change has been so powerful for me as far as being able to really take care of myself in a very intentional manner, and to be very intentional about the work that I'm able to do outside of the system. That's my story.
I love it. People don't realize how deep this goes, right? These are just not just us saying, a lot of times I think in the pandemic, they're like, oh, people just jumped up and was like, oh, I'm just going to be a D&I consultant. And because I have a lived experience or whatnot, but our stories go deep. And I love that because, and we're doing some really, really good work around it. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
So my path kind of like came and went. I started DEI work inside the Department of Defense, which is unsurprisingly really a man's world. And so my first dive into DEI was really about women, and noticing there weren't a lot of women leaders. There wasn't a lot of talk about how we ensure that women were getting the same, not just the same opportunities, but that they were ready for those opportunities. Because I was finding that women were being given the opportunity because DEI was a check the box where we need to have a certain number of women in power, but they weren't given the same opportunities to get where they needed to be, so that when they got into leadership, they were unprepared. And so it was perpetuating a narrative that, well, women don't belong in these roles because look what happens. No, women need the right training. They need the right access. They need from the start to be given the same opportunity so that when they get there, they're ready. And so I joined some of the councils and the ERGs and things while I was inside the Department of Defense. And that kind of blew the doors open for me that, well, this isn't just women. There's a lot of different layers to this that as a white person were things that I was aware of, but I wasn't living. Mine was, it's women. It's hard being a woman, but there were more layers to that. And I got really disenfranchised by that over time and decided, you know what, I don't belong in an organization and in a system that isn't prioritizing how we plant seeds so that the garden looks the way we need it to look, without the parts that I didn't love, and gave me an opportunity to be that advocate and that ally to say, I'm a different face. And sometimes people need to see Kiki and sometimes they need to see me. And sometimes they need to hear me say, hey, as white people, this is our responsibility to this work. This is the privilege. This is the access that we have. You're already white people in leadership. How do we take that and merge the work that needs to be done so that, again, 5-10 years from now, it looks different?